Good morning, everybody.
Hi, Tanya. Good morning. Yes, I can hear
Good
you.
morning. Good morning, everybody. I hope that everybody is there right now. Thank you for joining to this webinar. My name is Kivitz Tanya. I work at the KNX Association in the sales department. Some of you probably already know me from the support tickets or the phone calls. Yes, that's me. So today's topic is how to handle problems in the ETS. Before we start this subject, I would like to tell you that there will be a Q&A session at the very end of this webinar, so please note your questions down. Don't throw them during the webinar in the chat box, but please at the end. So we will try to read them out loudly and handle them the best way we can. I will now introduce you to our dear colleague Vasilios. He is an engineer at the KNX Association and the leader of the tools department at the KNX Association here in Belgium. So please, Vasilios, you can take the lead now.
Hi, Tanya, again. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation, Tanya. I hope that you're all fine, and thank you for joining this interesting, we hope, session today. We hope that you learned something new. So, as usually, when I give presentations, I try to cluster them in several parts so that it's easier for you to follow. I have done the same today, and today we have three different parts. So part one, this is all about the environmental requirements to ensure the proper installation of ETS Professional. Part number two, how to identify any problems that might arise with this professional and how to solve them, even without getting in contact with us. Don't take me wrong, it's not that we do not want to talk to you, but it's simply a matter of timing for you. If there is a way that you can solve your problem yourselves, then you better know it. And part three, this is about problems that are caused by incorrect handling of the device plugins. I'm pretty sure that most of you have already used devices with plugins, so, and even if not, then today you might see or you will see problems that may arise and how to deal with them. So let's start with the principles. The environment on which ETS Professional can be installed is shown here. Windows 8 and Windows 10 are the only operating systems that are currently supported. The minimum hardware and environmental requirements are quite low, as you can see, but the more powerful computer you have, the better performance you can achieve. A very important aspect here is that running ETS5 on a supported operating system in a virtual environment, such as a virtual PC, VMware, Parallels, etc., or even via remote desktop is not foreseen, is not supported by us. Working in such environments is at your own risk. And as I said, in this case, we cannot offer you any warranty and support. Why that? Because those virtual environments impose very specific restrictions on the operation of the system in terms of hardware and resource accessibility in general, which we as KNX Association cannot know and support. If you would like to have an ETS running on Linux, then you can opt for ETS Inside, that can also run in Linux, but this will be a topic for a next webinar. One of the first aspects that have to be checked to ensure the proper software installation is that if there is currently any software running, which can be either Windows updates or any other application, it shall not conflict with the ETS5 installer. Is maybe the setup file that you have corrupt? Then our recommendation is to always download any ETS5 installation file from a trusted source, which can only be one of the KNX Association official websites like the website, My KNX, Help Center, or even the built-in mechanism in ETS. The same applies for the ETS app files that have to be installed in ETS in order to activate their functionality. Always trust My KNX and ETS built-in update mechanism to do that. So, all that information that I have presented here can be, of course, found publicly on our Help Center at support.knx.org. under the ETS 5 Professional area. There you can find not only the tool requirements, but also user guides, how-to articles, and of course, help area with a lot of content that helps you resolving any issue that you might have with ETS. So let's see closely what does this area contain. Actually, that area contains several problem resolutions which can be classified to 6 different groups, which are the following. ETS cannot be installed, ETS doesn't start, ETS project, for whatever has to do with the actual project data actually, licensing issues, functionality issues, and external issues, where we will show how non-ETS issues can unfortunately interfere with your work in ETS. Let's start with the ETS installation problems. So we have seen the requirements to have a proper installation. Therefore, in case something goes wrong, then we have to check the following. First of all, the operating system. Obvious, but we do see a lot of customers trying to install ETS 5 on a non-supported operating system like Windows 7, example given. It may work. However, in case of problems, we cannot support you. One of the major reasons is that even Microsoft has stopped Windows 7 support. Therefore, in case there is a Windows problem, then we are all stuck. Another case could be when there are pending Windows updates, which may conflict with the ETS setup file. In this case, simply wait until the Windows updates are completed and then try to install ETS again. Additionally, any active antivirus or firewall software may block the ETS installation because of security reasons. In this case, it's recommended to temporarily deactivate the active antivirus or firewall and try again after you have deactivated. Moreover, it's recommended if you want to keep, and you want to keep, of course, your protection software activated, to whitelist the ETS Professional so that it never bothers you, so your software never bothers you again about any ETS installation. Another possible troublemaker could be a wrong or incomplete .NET Framework installation. Then in this case, a .NET Framework reinstallation or update is required. You can simply find the correct .NET Framework version on the website of Microsoft. Something happens quite often is to have another software installation running in parallel to ETS 5 installation. Then this is not the ideal situation. You have to wait until the other installation is completed and then try to install ETS 5 again. If you do not see any other software being installed at the same time, then you might have to reboot your computer and try again. Maybe there is something in your computer's cache. And last but not least, something that is also possible, the ETS 5 installer is corrupted. The file was not properly downloaded. Then easy, you have to download again the file from my KNX or the help center and try to do the installation again. If none of the above helps, then we have to look at your computer. How to do that? Via the installation troubleshooter. The installation troubleshooter collects all the necessary information from your computer in order to help us analyze any possible root cause of the installation failure. Don't worry, this tool does not collect any personal information or credit card numbers or passwords. No, we don't do that. We only collect information with regards to what software is installed on your computer, what software is running on your computer, Windows event log files, etc., etc. So to get this troubleshooter, simply go to the help area for ETS 5 and you will find it under the ETS installation section. So you see here the tool, you need to click the collect data button, and once the diagnostic data collection is completed, then you can mail it to support@knx.org, creating thus a support ticket. Please take some time to describe your problem and the conditions under which it appeared so that we can easier debug the problem. Simply receiving the troubleshooting data does not really help us because this setup troubleshooter is a universal tool we have to identify installation problems for all our software. So you should write some more information like I'm trying to install ETS 5, I'm trying to install ETS Inside, and I cannot succeed. Please have a look. Okay, let's see what's next. The second group of issues is when ETS does not start. This is bad. So let's have a look what is going on here. So here we do have 5 different cases that might block ETS from starting. Let's have a closer look on those 5 cases and how to deal with them so that we can make our ETS 5 starting again. So the first problem is related to the online catalog data. And how to identify such a problem is like that. You get an error message in your ETS similar to the one here on the screen. How can that be caused, in fact? When, example given, your internet connection is unstable and only partial data is downloaded, then you might be confronted with that problem. So what to do next? Simply close ETS and then delete the content from the online catalog folder, the directory of which you see here on your screen, and then start ETS 5 again. Another situation that may prevent ETS from starting is when the master data file is missing or is corrupt. The same root goes here. Internet connection is unstable and the master data file hasn't been downloaded or is partially downloaded. The master data file is actually a file that contains information that ETS needs in order to operate properly, like the manufacturer list, the data point types, and some other internal information only for ETS. How to identify? You will be confronted either with such an error message in the previous ETS versions or with another error message stating that there is a problem with the master data and you have to get in contact with KNX. What to do next? Close ETS, go to that URL that you see on your screen and download this file. And copy this file to the project 20 directory that you see here on your screen. Important, this is a URL of a file. It will open most likely in a browser. What you have to do is actually copy paste the content into a notepad, save the file like that, and it will be ready. Or you can even download the file directly from your browser. Another case that may prevent ETS from starting is when the user settings are wrong. In this case, you started ETS 5, you didn't get any error message, but ETS 5 is not shown on the screen. But you can only see that on your taskbar, like here on the picture. The root cause here can be when you work with multiple screens and you have ETS on your second screen, then you shut it down your computer, unplug the second screen, and then started the computer again. In some situations, ETS might still try to access your second screen. Then what you have to do in this case is to, first of all, make sure that ETS is not running at all. You may close it from the task manager, Alt Control Delete, and then end the process there. And go to the folder that is shown here on the screen where ETS keeps the user settings, rename the user.settings file to something else, or you may even delete it, it's no problem, and then start ETS again. Another case that prevents ETS from starting is when the product store data is corrupt or when that data is really huge. How to identify this situation? Usually ETS starts within a few seconds. If ETS doesn't start at all, or it takes too much time and remains always on the state updating product catalog cache, then this might give you a good hint that something is wrong with your product store folder. So what you actually have to do in this situation is, first of all, make sure that ETS is not running again. The task manager, Alt Control Delete, go to the product store folder or to the director of the product store, rename the product store folder to something else. You may even delete it if you want, and then start ETS again. And one of the last cases, at least one of the most common cases, is when the cache memory of ETS contains invalid data. So how to identify such a problem? ETS might start, and at a certain point in time you see such an error message on your screen. Then you have to take some actions. So you have to actually close ETS if it has started, of course, and you see the error message, and then go to the cache directory from ETS5, delete the entire content, and start ETS again. Now, if none of the previous instructions helped, then we need the startup troubleshooter. This startup troubleshooter collects all the necessary information from your computer in order to help us analyze the possible root cause of the startup failure. This tool, like the installation troubleshooter, does not collect any personal information, but only information with regards to the software installed and running on your computer. Again, to get this startup troubleshooter, simply go to the help area for ETS5, and then you can find the instructions under the ETS does not start section. The startup troubleshooter actually is installed together with ETS5, and you may recall it as shown here on the screen. So you see the tool, you need to follow the steps. I had a small video here. Yes, you need to follow the steps as shown here on the video. And again, once you collect the diagnostic information, what you have to do is to simply mail us the diagnostic files together with a short description of your problem and how to reproduce the problem so that we can help you solve your problem. And we save the file, and then you store it, you send it. The next group of issues is about the project data handling. However, before we start showing how to diagnose and resolve issues related to projects, an advice is to always make a backup of your project, or projects in plural. This can either be done by triggering a simple project export, or using the project archive, or even using the project restore points. So if something happens, you can always restore your backup and avoid all the issues shown in the next slides. So let's have a look and see everything in detail. So in fact, ETS has three repositories to store data. One is the ETS product storage, where ETS stores all the product related information that is generated when you import a product either from an external KNX prod or VD file or from the online catalog. The ETS project storage, where all your projects are stored, and the ETS project archive, where you may store your projects if you would like to collaborate with other people, example given in a project, or when you want to make a backup, or if you want to synchronize those projects with a cloud service. What is important for you to know for those storages? ETS5 stores all the projects and the products as files and does not use a database. So the database story is over. Another important aspect is that it's not possible to bypass the import-export mechanism that ETS implements. It's not possible to simply take over the project store folder from one computer to another computer. Why that? The answer can be given in one sentence: because of the possible plugins that might be used in those projects, which means if those projects are not properly exported with a standard export-import mechanism, then you might end up with a corrupted project, which means you will not be able to access your project. Furthermore, it's not allowed to manipulate any of the data from the folders that you see here on the screen. The data that is stored there is only and shall only be manipulated by ETS. ETS has a transactional file system that takes care of the data handling. You, as a user, shall not manipulate those files. In worst case, your projects will not be usable and you will have to get in contact with us so that we try to recover those projects for you. And last bullet from this slide is that the product and project storages have to be different. ETS will give you a warning if it identifies that those folders, those paths are the same, so that you change them. So most of the project-related issues have to deal with compromised data in the project store folder, which do not allow you to work with the project. What you have to do in this case is to compress and zip the project store folder, the default location you can see here on the screen. Send us the project store folder with a zip file via support ticket and describe as what has happened. Important, in some cases, the project store folders might be quite huge. So you better send those files via an external cloud service like Dropbox, Google Drive, etc. And of course, when you send us those data, you have to indicate the name of the projects that are affected. So that if you have 100 projects in those project store and you only need to recover only few of them, then it's better for us to recover only those, because recovering projects takes time. So far, we have seen how the most common problems can be resolved. Now, I would like to show you how to resolve issues that are caused by non-ETS related causes. And then later on, I will mention how to analyze issues that belong to licensing or the software functionality as such. So the 5 most common external, as we call them, issues that might cause troubles when working with ETS are those shown here on the list. As you can see, those are situations where ETS has actually no influence on and still is the victim, within quotation marks, of the situation. Let's go through them to see what they're all about and what you can do in case you are confronted with them. Multiple devices with the same address always point to a topological problem. That could be a loop in the bus line, fault addressing, whatever. An exception is actually the address is 15.15.255, since those are the initial device addresses when no assignment has been made yet. In this case, you should check your cabling to verify the topology. We will see that in the next slide, actually. If there is more than one device in programming mode, then it is not possible to program individual addresses within that line. How to solve? Use the ETS diagnostics function programming mode, like you see here on the screen, in order to check which device or devices is or are in programming mode. Then use the ETS diagnostic function, individual address check, in order to see which address is in programming mode and then turn the programming mode off. Please note, however, that this will not work either if more than one of these devices have the same individual addresses. This is considered being a topological mistake, as we said in the previous slide. So topological issues in an installation are most of the time identifiable during device commissioning. ETS cannot program the devices and usually reports back that the device does not respond in appropriate time or any other error message during the configuration process. This is a hint to check your wiring, your topology in the installation. Most of the topological related issues are due to one or a combination of the following mistakes that are listed here. Maybe we can explain a few of them that concern device addressing. So 1, 2, 4, and 5 are actually cases where the addresses are wrong. So the interface has the same individual address as one of the devices in the bus. So that means that there are two devices in the line that have the same individual address. It's a problem, we saw it before. Several devices in the bus have the same individual address. So number one is in fact and belongs to case 2 as well. Case number 4, the individual address of the target device does not match with its line. So example given, the individual address of the device that needs to be programmed is 1.2.55, but it's physically connected to line 1.1. So there are also cases where the actual cabling is incorrect, and that we can see in case 3. The main line and the subline of one or more line couplers are physically swapped. You know, or if you don't know, you will learn it now. A coupler has two sides, the primary and the secondary. So if you have swapped the cabling on those two connections, then you will have problems when trying to commission devices. Number 6, two lines are physically connected, so a short circuit. That should never happen. Number 7, a line has been connected to the power supply unit's auxiliary connector instead of the KNX TP1 connector. So actually, a power supply might have two connections for power, one for the KNX bus and one for auxiliary power to be given to devices that require them. If you swap those two connections, then again, you will not be able to get access to the bus. You will have connection problems. And something that is important, number 8, so under-dimensioned power supply unit. So you have a smaller power supply than the one that you really need. Example given, you have 100 devices in your installation and you only have a power supply of 320 milliamperes. Then that might bring you into trouble because there is not enough power supplied to the bus devices. Okay, of course, there is also the case where a device might be defective. So in this case, normal, you cannot access a device, or even worse scenario, the device does not react properly and might send false telegrams to the bus. Okay, so we have seen how what are the possible root causes for the topological mistakes. Now let's see how we can resolve those topological issues. Actually, we can solve them following the problem isolation practice. In concrete, our recommendation is to build up the entire installation from scratch again by following simple steps. So at first, start with the first line, which shall only contain a power supply and an interface. Does this work fine? Okay, then add devices step by step, verifying that after having added one device, the above problems do not occur. Then add another line and repeat again the addition of devices slowly and carefully. Then in this case, you will be able to isolate and resolve the issue, because at a certain point in time, you will see what the problem is. Now, another issue that might occur is the non-recognition of the connected KNX USB interface by ETS. So those are the most common root causes. Let's have a closer look. Case 1, USB cable or USB port issue. In concrete here, the USB cable between the computer and the KNX USB interface is broken, and or the connected USB port is defective. In case of a defective USB port, which means that the USB port does not deliver enough power or has some non-standard chipset with a specific driver, then this is also a problem. What to do in this case to resolve the issue? Then the following shall be done. Very common, but it's better to already make you aware of those cases, is to unplug the USB cable from the currently connected USB port and plug it to another USB port from the same computer. Does it work? If not, then unplug the USB cable from the currently connected USB port and plug it to a USB port from another computer. If it works, then the USB ports of your computer have an issue, obviously. If it still doesn't work, then you have to replace the USB cable and perform those steps again. Case 2, Windows 8.1 or Windows 10, sleep mode. This case is when the USB ports or the operating system as such, example given when closing the notebook lid, go automatically to sleep mode. What to do in this case? First of all, this is operating system related, so we can provide a small fix that prevents Windows to go into sleep mode for any connected KNX USB interface. There are some preconditions that need to be fulfilled. Example given, you need to have administrative rights on the computer where the fix is applied. It needs to be installed per KNX USB interface connected to the computer. Case 3, protection software is blocking access to the interface. Similar to what we saw earlier for the ETS installation, an antivirus software or other security software, be it firewall, be it malware detection, is blocking the access to the interface. Solution, temporarily deactivate such software that may interfere with the KNX USB interface. And last but not least, the KNX USB interface is not connected to the bus. That may happen if either the KNX USB interface is not connected to the KNX bus or the KNX bus has not enough power or not power at all. Additionally to that, it may also happen if the bus connection polarity is reversed. So what to do here? Connect the KNX USB interface to the KNX bus correctly, obviously, and verify that the connection's polarity is not reversed. So black goes to black and red goes to red. And last but not least, verify that the KNX power supply is supplying sufficient power to the KNX bus. Now, the last part of the presentation is actually we call them plugin related problems. So issues might also be caused by the missing or incorrect handling of device plugins and other required external software. A device plugin is in fact an additional software that is provided by the device's manufacturer that should be installed prior to any device import in a project or prior to any project import that contains such a device. How to identify such a problem? You see that here on the screen. The devices that are marked with either the red or yellow icon have such a problem. Common root causes? Yes, there are. Plugin is not installed or plugin is installed but and you can see we can distinguish those two cases. So the first case is when a required plugin is not installed, and the other case is when the plugin is not installed. And there is something additionally that needs to be checked. So let's have a closer look here. So let's start with the first case where the plugin is not installed. What you have to do in case a device requires a plugin is to simply download the plugin or any other external software from the manufacturer's website and install it before importing a project containing such a device or before adding such a device to the project. Some of the most known plugins, I'm not saying that those plugins are problematic. No, I'm just saying that those are maybe the most famous, most common plugins that come along with devices, and it's good if you know how to deal with them. So you see the ABB Bush Jaeger power tool and all the econ plugins used by several manufacturers like Gira, Berker, Albert Jung, etc., etc. It is important to follow exactly all the steps indicated in the plugin. Otherwise, the plugin is not installed in spite of having taken all the steps from the plugin installer. For the econ plugin, you see an example here. At first, it informs you that there will be a product database exported, which should be imported in the ETS catalog. Then the default export folder, which is for most of the econ plugins independent of the manufacturer, the one shown here on the screen. You can of course change that, but then you have to remember the directory because you will need it in the next step. And one last step before the export of the necessary data is a summary of what is going to be exported and where. In this case, you can see we're using the MT701 ABB.v3 file, which is going to be exported. Then click Install. That was not the last step. The plugin has not been installed yet. You have to import the previously exported file from the plugin installer into the ETS catalog, and only then you will be able to import properly this device into your project or any other project containing such a device. The last step is very, very important. We have seen customers who contact us and tell us, I have installed the plugin, but I'm still not able to add properly the device. In most cases, they simply missed that step. Now, let's see cases. Actually, this is not case one, it's case two, where the plugin is installed, but there is something else that needs to be checked. So, case two, the device in the imported project is marked as defective, but new devices of the, no, actually this is case two, but sub-case one. So the device can be, is marked as defective, and new devices of the same type can be added, can be configured. So how to identify such a case? Exactly when you have the described symptoms here, which are if the device is imported and it cannot be configured, but when you create a new device, it can be configured, then you fall into this case. Common root causes here is the incorrect project export. What I mean by this is that when exporting the affected project, the plugin handler was not invoked, and consequently the project export has resulted to a non-properly exported project. How to resolve such a situation? Simply export the project again from its source after having resolved any issues on the source computer. If that is not possible, then you might have to send us either the project store folder, as we explained earlier in the slides, or the ETS3 or ETS4 database so that we can try to recover your project properly, if this is possible, of course. Then, case two, the device in the imported project is marked as defective, and trying to add new devices of the same type does not work either. How to identify such a case? From the symptoms I've just described, then if you have those symptoms, then you fall into that situation. Common root causes, of course, is the missing or incorrect installation of the plugin or the external software. The reasons for which can be operating system related issues, lacking of administrator rights, antivirus software, and any other conditions which are not under ETS or our control. So what you have to do in this case is simply to install or reinstall the plugin and then import the project again. So this is the only solution we can offer here. And again, if that still doesn't work, then you have to most likely restore your computer so that the plugins can be installed. For the other two remaining groups of issues, the functionality and the licensing issues, you will have to start the extended diagnostic wizard and provide us with the diagnostic data collected by that tool. So concretely, what you have to do here is to go into the ETS settings in ETS, and then the troubleshooting, and change the logging level to extended. Please note, this will slow down your ETS because it tracks much more information about ETS usage. Therefore, you shall not keep it activated. So, after you have activated the extended logging, try to reproduce the problem, whatever that can be. Once the problem is reproduced, go back to that section and start the troubleshooting. Follow the steps of the tool that you're currently seeing on the screen, And at the end, save the file and send that generated file to us via email to support@knx.org. You should already know it by now. And important step, go back to the ETS settings, troubleshooting, and set the logging level to standard again. Otherwise, your ETS will be really, really slow. That's it actually from my side. I think, Tanya, the microphone is back to you again.
Thank you very much, Vasily. This was a really interesting presentation. So before we go to the Q&A session, I would just like to remind you that you can review or watch other recordings of webinars that you might probably have missed on our YouTube channel. So you go to YouTube, you put KNX Association, and then you have the choice. All our webinars, the upcoming ones, can be viewed on our knx.org. You can simply go on the webinar page and then you see all the upcoming webinars. So before we go to the Q&A session, let me just please remind you that we also have a complete training plan for professionals that are interested in KNX. You can find this information on start.knx.org. There you can see 5 steps how to become a KNX expert. Please have a closer look at this for your guidance. Well, okay, great. Now we will take some time for the questions. I have already read some of the questions during the nice presentation of Vasily, and the most upcoming question, which I think is really important for attendees, is they want it to be supported on Mac. So, Vasily, please explain why ETS is not supported on Mac.
That's a very good question. We do have that question almost every day, in fact. The reason is very simple. ETS is based and is actually built against Microsoft components like .NET Framework. Why that? So actually the underlying components of ETS, so the so-called Falcon and Hawk, these are very, very technical, but since we have people who ask about the Mac, we need to explain that. So the underlying components of ETS, as I said, the Falcon and Hawk, the components that take care of the bus communication and the handling of the data on the bus, are actually built against the .NET Core framework, which since a few months, I think is maybe 1.5 years or maybe 2 years, this is also supported on other operating systems like Linux and Mac. So the underlying components of ETS can run on Mac. However, the user interface components are compiled with .NET Framework. .NET Framework is a Windows-specific framework. So we have built ETS against that framework only for Windows, and the reason for that is the device plugins. Unfortunately, or today I can only say unfortunately, but when the plugins were introduced, it was a good solution. We need to build ETS for Windows because there are devices that have plugins that run only on Windows. Imagine you get an ETS version for Mac and you start your ETS there, and then all of a sudden you have one nice device that requires a plugin that runs only on Windows, and then ETS says, sorry, you cannot program that device. And of course, having paid the full price for an ETS Professional and not being able to program devices is not a good thing. So for the time being, we only stick to the principle for Windows, ETS Professional only for Windows. There are no plans for Mac because of the constant, I have to say, we have to maintain the compatibility with all devices. So we remain with Windows only. If you do, however, want to use ETS to be able to configure devices on Linux or other operating systems, then I would recommend to use ETS Inside. Be aware, ETS Inside does not handle devices with plugins. So be aware of that.
All right, thank you for this answer. I have a really, really detailed and long question from one of our attendees. I'm telling this, sir, please, I'm copying all your questions because it's not easy for Vasily to answer them all. These are too detailed and too long. I'm copying them in the mail. He will do the best he can to answer you after this session, okay? For all the other questions that remain unanswered, please write an email to info@knx.org. But before we close this session, there is another one who is asking me that he noticed that some previous webinars are not available on YouTube channel yet. That is perfectly normal because we take some time to listen to the recording and to sometimes cut out some, issues that happened during the webinar or bad connection issues. So before it's really completed and uploaded to our YouTube channel, it takes a few days, so please be patient. Another question is, what if we run ETS on a virtual machine? Would it communicate with the bus?
I think that I already answered that during the presentation. It may run. For sure it may run. If you are an expert on virtual machines and you know what to do, you may, of course, install ETS if the operating system is one of the supported ones. However, in case that something goes wrong, you don't have access to the bus, your USB interface is not recognized anymore, your KNX interface is not recognized anymore, we can unfortunately not support you. As I said in the respective slide, the virtual machines and all those virtual environments have some constraints about on the hardware and the resources of the operating system. They might put a limit on the memory usage, on the hard disk usage, on the acceleration of the software, on the performance, and those are very, very specific. This is very specific knowledge for the virtual machine that we as KNX Association cannot have, may not have. So officially, we do not support that, and we do not encourage people to install ETS on virtual machines. So to answer the question with a yes and no, yes, it may have access to the bus, but in case there are problems, we are not able to help you because those might be caused by the virtual machine as such.
Okay, thank you for this information. So I think that the other questions, as I said, we're going to answer them. If you have more questions, please send us an email at info@knx.org, as I already said. I would like to thank you, all of you. I will close this session for today. Thank you, Vasily, for your nice presentation.
Thank you very much, Tanya, for the invitation. Always happy to support you.
Great, thank you. I wish all of you a good day. Please stay healthy. We need you back for the next webinar. All right? Have a great day. Bye.
Bye-bye to everybody.
Bye-bye.